And coherence theories of truth is I have a bunch of ideas in my head, yeah, and they inform my understanding of the world, yeah. So the way I understand the world has something to do with these ideas or these theories that I carry around in my head. You have an idea, and you come over to me with your new idea, and you go, Jabe, here's the new idea. Of course, coherence theory basically takes that and goes, how many theories that I currently have in my head would I have to change to integrate this new theory into my head so that now it's like part of my whole network of ideas, right? And to the extent that it would be too hard, I would have to change too many current theories in my head to accept this new theory, then that new theory is false. It doesn't cohere with the current knowledge that I have about the world. And the result of that is that because there is no inherent correspondence in there, there's no test of reality, there's just test of coherence for truth, you can believe all sorts of really crazy things to be true. Jesus rode around on dinosaurs at some point. Seems, if you've been told the right set of stories, that would make sense and seem truthful to you. If you were told a different set of stories, that would seem less truthful to you. Bill Gates is injecting microchips into you, even though he already has access to your cell phone. Things like that. Those would be coherence theories.
Yeah. I got updated to 5G recently, and I've been. I gotta say the signal is it's overrated. I can't hear the anyway.
No complaints here.
Ignorant of the situation completely, like below. Like you don't even have a clue. And also one of the things you could say is that correspondence theories often will create a resistance to understanding what's actually happening. There's a whole set of kind of the way in which propaganda and certain ways of working and thinking resist you getting out of your current storytelling, right? And often one of the more distressing ones is people basically insist that they don't want to be corrected. They don't want to know things. They don't trust the media. They don't trust scientists. They want to be in a situation where the only people that are telling them the truth are people who are telling them stories that don't make their head hurt.
Okay, this is really interesting because I think this can be illustrated with this process like model kind of frame, because like and this is extremely oversimplified, but let's assume that a lower vertical position is less awareness of correspondent reality. Let's say that there is a true reality to be observed and that you can observe it by close examination. Lots of assumptions going into that, but let's say that infinity is like complete awareness of the universe and everything within it.
Yep.
And then there's like the coherence version of that, which is okay when your team hits that general theory moment, and it, let's say in this example, like it matches what management knows, and this is assuming that there is one dimension of knowledge and it's either more or less. Let's say it's a number. Like one is infinity is correspondent to reality, and like 0.25 or whatever is like where everybody's at right now. And so now you've also hit 0.24, and that's pretty close to 0.25, and so you've got coherence because it's close. And so then you point out like these moments where along the way eventually the learning exceeds the current status quo, the current like kind of equilibrium there, turns into asymmetry, but that creates that event moment and that collapse that occurs right afterwards, because correspondent, like you have a developer goes to a conference, learns things at a conference, comes back into the organization, goes, I've got all these new ways of working that we could try out. But that's, let's say, correspondent to reality, but incoherent with the management's kind of version of things. And so then you've got that. I think this is what Simon is talking about all the time whenever he's complaining, right, about the status quo of strategy in organizations. If you just looked, if you just made maps, if you just examined reality, you'd see how quickly your version of reality is like not correspondent. It does not make sense anymore.
That's right. Yep.
Then that also makes me think, when you bring a user into this, if you're talking about an organization and teams, there's just like this little flashing light in my head that's saying, oh, what about like Kano model stuff, where what's expected changes? Like whoever's consuming what we're producing, their expectations are constantly doing the same kind of like up and down. So like what would be a relationship with the three levels of that?
Yep. And I do think it's a thing that I say when I used to work with Ben all the time. I would say all the time, designers in particular, and I think everybody does some level of design, but designers both overestimate and underestimate themselves all the time. And the underestimation, I think, is roughly this. I think designers design things because they believe that the way they design things will affect people's emotions, behaviors, and actions. That's what they're doing. They didn't believe that, I don't think they'd be designing things. I think they would be like artists, like who were making objects that they had personal emotional, beliefs in. But designers are doing things because they believe it will shape behaviors. So if you're successful, that means you're literally changing the social system. So as you said, the more successful you are, the more you change the system, right? Like the more you actually have to understand that you have to continuously adapt, right? And so this is where the weird version of it is to say, your infinity here is a true theory of the universe. And the true theory of the universe is if I know the location of every particle in the universe and its current angular momentum, I can predict the future and the past completely. That's the theory. And the problem, of course, is that to be able to do that, you would have to have another universe worth of place to put all the location data, because you'd have to have a bit of information for every particle in the universe. That's one universe of stuff that you'd need. And then you'd also need a third universe to measure all the angular momentum, right? So you just need way too much. The data required to do the calculations would exceed the universe itself by at least 2 times. So you can't get there. And as a result, we're always in the 3-body problem, which is the thing we're describing. When we move one thing, the other things wiggle, and can't clarify what the wiggling's happening completely. And that's the problem. Yeah, especially in social systems and socio-technical systems where the wiggling of things is very hard to track. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And even just seeing in chat right now, like one of the things that's coming up is there's so much betweening that's happening. Like it's the internal organization, or it's just like my team, my management, my C-suite inside the boundaries of my organization. Then it's like the organization and everybody else in the world. And there are lots of other organizations, it turns out, and they all have different things that they care about, and they all believe different things. And then also they're like the people who can actually consume what we produce, and like the people that actually take the value that we, like the users, so to speak. So all of that is multi-dimensional problem of what's real, what's believed currently. And just maybe, so here's a little punctuation mark, I think, on this moment before we get into the ideal present canvas is, from a conditions consequences framing of this situation, which that's a whole topic for another day, but I think that the idea that Simon Wardley is trying to promote here is basically, if you look, you will find things. And if you find things, then you will know more than other people. And that is going to actually open up certain kinds of opportunities. It's not like inevitable that Badiou moment of collapse will happen. Like you can, for example, notice when other people's versions of reality are not coherent with the reality that you see as being more correspondent. Like I looked closely, it looks different than what you think. So let's have a little moment where, like, in smaller kind of chunks, we ongoingly work on bringing your version of how things are closer to the correspondence. And I think that's what strategic potential becomes in that moment.